Welcome back to the Business of Soul Searching. I'm Erin, your host, and I invite you to join me as I travel from city to city, interviewing people from different walks of life that have faced their fear and came out on the other side. Are you ready for this?
Hello everyone, this is Erin from the Business of Soul Searching. I have a special episode for you guys today. I had a flashback and I'll get, into that in a little bit. Usually I have an interview for people that do follow the podcast and they kind of delve into their stories and kind of, their soul searching journey. But I felt like, I have some stories that might be helpful to people as well. And I don't usually get to tell them. So since this is my show, I figured why don't I start sliding them in, as it makes sense. And, with that being said, I just want to take a moment to thank my lovely listeners for following. Please make sure to share this podcast episode and live stream with someone you love. You can also find me on Facebook at The Business of Soul Searching, Business of Soul on Instagram, and Business of Soul 9 on Twitter. So my topic today is turning your flashbacks into something of value. So I guess I'll just kind of jump right into it. I came home today to my family home. I'm from Rhode Island, and so I went to go visit my family. And I went into my bedroom, that's been my room since I was a kid. That was the kids' room that my sister and I started in, and then as she got older, they moved her to the next room over, so on and so forth. Anyways, with that being said, there are a lot of memories that go into your family home. There are a lot of memories that go into your room, especially for me at least. And a lot of my trauma kind of happened between high school and college age. So there's a lot of memories, good memories. There's some dark memories that happen in this house and in this town. And so, when I go home, I always have to be kind of vigilant of that and aware and open and mindful, And so with that being said, I sat on my bed and took out my laptop. I have a few different projects coming out, which I'll talk about, in upcoming episodes. And I sat down and I had a flashback to a meltdown that actually I had going back to, 2019? So this probably took place in 2016, I think, or 2015. And I kind of just came back into this meltdown and remembered how horrific it was and how powerless and immobile I was. And I'm not going to talk about the original event in this particular episode that triggered the meltdown in 2016. But because it's just so controversial and I don't want people to get distracted from the message, which is that we can use our flashbacks to kind of empower us and move us forward in our soul searching journey. So to go back to 2016 to really kind of like illustrate, how big this meltdown was, I had to take time off of work. And really, I to this day still, actually I do remember what triggered me. So, I was getting very serious with someone, and we were sitting here in this house, and we were talking, and in my mind I had this thought like, I've never told anyone the secret about myself before. Should I tell him? Like, this is getting really serious. So it's like you want to be honest with your partner, you want to be open with your partner, and so I'm like, okay. And then I just blurted it out, and I started hysterically crying afterwards. And of course, men, they don't really know what to do with you and your emotions, and they don't know what to do with their emotions, never mind your emotions. So he did his best to comfort me in the moment. The original trauma was bubbling up anyways, and then that kind of was like my time to kind of deliver it to him. And I think he handled it very well, considering, and I felt that he felt a little bit powerless because it had already happened, and there's nothing that he can go back in time and change what happened and how it affected me and how long I've been holding on to it, because this is something that happened by that time 8 years ago. From that time, so 8 years have gone by that I haven't told anyone about this secret, and and so he kind of just supported me the best that he could. And then because of how hysterically I was crying and how upset I was, I actually, like I said, I took off of work. I work in the mental health field, so people are understanding of mental health breakdowns and that there's trauma and there's a lot of different things that happen to people before they start the job, especially this particular job that I had. And I texted my supervisor and was like, I'm having flashbacks from trauma that happened years and years ago, and I don't feel like I can actually make it to work without kind of bursting into tears and just reliving this, and I do need some time to myself. She understood. It was great. Well, the meltdown wasn't great, but the fact that she understood and was very supportive was, amazing. And so I then I wasn't really sleeping, but, I got to the point where, I was out for days, and then kind of the weekend came, so I had that buffer time. I took a few more days off, the next week, and then eventually returned to work. And during those days, I wasn't eating. I wasn't bathing. I wasn't getting out of bed, actually. I was just crying and crying and crying, and at the time I was religious, and I was asking God, why me? Why me? Why did this happen to me? Why, just kind of one of those things when you're at your lowest point of why, and it was really difficult to get through. It was insanely difficult to really just kind of pull yourself out of that dark place, and not just return to work, but return to life. Once depression hits, and for those of us that struggle with depression, we don't know kind of when it's going to hit the worst, how deep it's going to take us. Like, I didn't know I was going to have a breakdown in the middle of, I don't even know, I think it was like spring or summer or something like that, came out of nowhere. I didn't even know that event that happened in 2008 still bothered me. And that's why I made this episode, is because I was blindsided, because I had 3 therapists by the time in between those 8 years, and I'd actually never brought it up to either of them. And, our secrets make us sick, and I felt as though I was blindsided because, for me personally, I bury things. Like, I bury trauma. I bury it. I put dirt over it, and more dirt, and the next day more dirt and more dirt and more dirt, especially if there's shame involved or there's some type of judgment that I might receive from people, and I bury it. And, trauma can be really sneaky. It feels as though it's gone, but it's really just resting. It's really just there, lying dormant in your subconscious, and waiting for a trigger to open up the floodgates, and then, it's party time. So I guess what I say to people is that, we're so fearful of, I don't know if I'd say embracing, but yeah, embracing things that have happened to us that may be shameful or maybe painful, and kind of walking through them, because it was a lesson, that meltdown was a sign that I'm not over this. We think we're over things, but really we're not. Like I said, they're just dormant. They're just kind of lying there. They're swept under the rug, and it feels in the moment like it's fine. We get a new boo, we get a new apartment, we get a new this and that, and everything's fine. But it's like, are we internally fine? Are we really deeply, is our soul fine? Is our soul okay? Has our soul processed everything? Or do we just look good on the outside? So, I didn't want this episode to be super long, but I did, really want to drive that home, is that, just check in with self. That's so, so important. To check in with self and find out, am I hiding this trauma? Have I really walked through it? Have I really, even if you're not, I don't know if there is I'm done with this, but I am working through this and working on this and working inside of this and trying to figure out in myself, how do I be a better me? How do I be a stronger me? How do I not let my past cripple me at any moment, So that's something I wanted to share because like I said, I'm actually recording this episode in my childhood bedroom, just to really kind of, and I have like goosebumps just even kind of thinking about it and, feeling it. But, for people that have made it this far in the episode, I hope you guys learned something valuable from this and something valuable from me. I'm definitely going to be getting more personal, this season. I'm really going there, not just with the travel and finding the culture and bringing it back, but, I'm going to be telling more about me. I really, really, really want people to be able to identify with me, not just the business of soul searching, not just the term soul searching, not just my photography and, what I look like and my skin color and, the sayings. My sayings are similar to their sayings. I want you to understand my story. I want you to understand my process. And I want you to know that I'm in this for more than a paycheck and that this is just, this is my life. This is part of my healing.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Business of Soul Searching. If you have any exciting soul searching stories, please email them to thebusinessofsoulsearching@gmail.com for a possible shout out in next week's episode. Most importantly, take a calculated risk this week. Don't do it for me, do it for you.